My fellow Americans, I'm pleased to tell you today that I've signed legislation that will outlaw Russia forever. We begin bombing in 5 minutes.
It is essential that our team learns to work with our new recruit, not against him.
I'm a geek, walking down the street.
Check the computer, the mainframe computer.
I access the mainframe.
At the end of this day, one shall stand, one shall fall. Time to find out.
Welcome to Basically a Geek Show. Here are your hosts, Mike and Jack.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 26 of Basically a Geek Show, our 6-month anniversary spectacular!
Wow, you're really overbilling it, aren't you? Spectacular?
I just found out it was 6 months today. I haven't been keeping track of shit.
And I'm the one who sucks at math, you fucking cretin.
I suck at math too.
Well, I know there are 52 weeks in a year. I know 26 is half of 52.
Oh, see, I guess I know that. I just didn't make the connection. It doesn't matter. I guess it makes sense though, because we started the show like a week or two after basically a football show ended, and that ended in February with the Super Bowl.
Right.
And then this is August, so yeah, 8 minus 2, yeah, 6 months, yeah.
So
And
here we be.
Speaking of that, I would be remiss if I didn't plug the return of Basically a Football Show as Zach and Greg discuss the NFL preseason, their preseason rankings, all that good stuff. Football is fastly approaching. They already had the first preseason game, and it's in early August. It's goddamn ridiculous. But football is back, ladies and gentlemen. So look forward to Basically a Football Show with Zach and Greg. Go Chargers!
Yay. So yeah, I would actually, we would also be remiss if we didn't thank our many loyal listeners. Thank you for being bored enough to spend some time with us every week. We hope we at least, give you something semi-pleasant to listen to and haven't corrupted your family or youth too much. Please don't let them listen to this show. We're horrible, horrible people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, this is an idea that Mike and I have been kicking around for, I don't know, a couple of months now. And it's one of those things that we'll talk about in passing, but we're like, yeah, whatever. And we never really do it. But I want to get some feedback from our audience. If you would like to listen to us record the show live every now and then, basically what we do, we'd go on Twitch. I'd probably be streaming a game in the background or whatever. Just to comply with their regulations. So you get to see a little bit of that maybe. But if you'd like to listen to Mike and I record some episodes live, definitely give us some feedback. And, if there seems to be an interest for it, we'll try and make that happen for you.
Indeed. We were actually planning to kind of do a test run for this show live. Didn't really pan out. Kind of snuck up on us, actually. We had these big plans. Oh, we're going to do Highlander, 2, Bad Movie, Public Defender, all that stuff. But then, just a couple days went by and we're like, oh, hey, yeah, that's right, the show. So, definitely let us know if you want to do something live. I know basically a sports show. We did the live thing. The thing that complicated basically a sports show's live broadcasting was we also tried to work listener calls into it. And that technology was very spotty, and it kind of dragged the whole thing down. We won't be doing that for this show. If it is, it'll just be on Twitch. You guys can interact and ask whatever you want through the chat. But live, we won't be doing live calls. It's just not viable, given the technological limitations.
The other thing is, when Mike told me that they were doing live calls for Bass, anyone who kind of has listened enough to the show to kind of get my personality may understand how hard I had to try to not call and troll them. I have as most of you have probably gathered, I have a very warped sense of humor, and the temptation at times was just almost so great that the only thing preventing me from doing it was getting drunk and forgetting to. So yeah, but we do, listener feedback on Twitch. You just answer in chat, what have you. And yeah, but let us know if that's something you'd like to do.
Indeed. I'm actually really psyched about this first piece of news. It's a great way actually to think to start off a milestone like this. A couple shows back, I kind of went after the interwebs for what I perceived was their unfair criticism of Transformers: Age of Extinction.
You were going to single-handedly fix the internet.
Indeed. I told the internet they were wrong and that they should think about what they had done. And I know that, monetary return is not the only way to judge a movie's quality, but guess what, guys? Age of Extinction! Over $1 billion! Woo! Not only that, but Michael Bay is, what is he, second highest grossing director of all time behind only Steven Spielberg? And Paramount extended their contract with Michael Bay for 3 years. Now, of course, that doesn't guarantee that he's going to be working on Transformers films, but I think it does really underscore just how effective this guy is at making movies the public wants to see. Monetary return isn't the only way to judge a movie's quality, but at the same time, if you get enough people to spend $1 billion on your movie, say what you will about Michael Bay, say what you will about his movies, his plot lines, his directing style, trash him all you want. At the end of the day, you cannot deny that there is a certain connection that he has with the general audience, or that, to put it frankly, Michael Bay knows how to make movies that people want to watch.
Explosions and boobs.
There really weren't any boobs in Age of Extinction, though. I mean, not really.
Well, true, but fucker, you ruined my joke.
But I'm psyched. First, as a fan of the movie, I wanted to see it excel. So all of these people who seemingly criticize the movie without even watching it, have to eat a bit of crow. And also, because, hey, I'm a Transformers fan, and whatever your opinions are of the live-action movie franchise, again, you really shouldn't be rooting against them if you are a Transformers fan. Because even if you hate the movies, there's something else in this franchise you like, be it the comics, be it Generations, maybe you're even psyched about the upcoming Robots in Disguise show. But all of that benefits greatly from the cash influx these movies provide the franchise. So, you know what? As Transformers fans everywhere, regardless of what we think about these films, reason to celebrate. As a fan of these films, I'm happy. Congratulations, Mr. Bay. Haters gonna hate. Keep it real.
Real explosions and real boobs. Well, they don't have to be real boobs.
No.
Fake boobs work too, but boobs.
Yeah. But, Age of Extinction, breaking the $1 billion mark. And here's what's really interesting about this, is that there are some countries where Age of Extinction hasn't been released yet. So.
Right. Now, correct me if I'm wrong on this. Didn't it take Dark of the Moon longer to reach this point?
It did, yes.
Didn't it take like DVD sales to push it over the $1 billion mark?
It didn't take DVD sales, but it did take longer to hit $1 billion in theaters.
Okay.
And Dark of the Moon, of course, being the third, this is the fourth. But the thing about it is that, okay, the benchmark when it comes to economic viability for a geek movie is the Avengers. The Avengers made $1.5 billion. Age of Extinction hasn't even been released in a few countries. So, if Age of Extinction managed to make more than Avengers, or even really make as much as Avengers, that would be so worth it just to watch the faux intellectuals on the internet just crap themselves in anger.
They won't. They'll just say, well, they'll pull a line out of my hat, which I usually use to refer to multiple things outside of this. They'll just say, well, people are stupid. Just because everyone likes something doesn't mean it's actually good, which I do agree with. But in this case, Yeah, it's saying, obviously to some degree, these movies aren't as categorically bad as you're saying they are. Mm-hmm. I'm with you on this. I don't get the Michael Bay hate. I've seen the movie now, and I didn't like it as much as you did, but I certainly didn't dislike it. It was good. It just had some things that I thought could have been done a bit better. But it was very different from the previous installments, and that's what we were promised. So, I mean, we got what we were told we were going to get.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. I'm really excited, and I'm especially excited seeing the next one because this movie did end on a bit of a cliffhanger. So I'm curious to see what happens next. How much of Optimus Prime's adventures in space we will see.
Yeah. And so evidently, of course, Transformers has been very successful, retardedly successful, obscenely successful, which, of course, prompted this whole thing of, hey, let's reboot other 80s franchises. And there was always one that we've been kind of wanting. Well, we didn't want a reboot. We wanted a sequel. We're not going to get the sequel with the passing of Harold Ramis. But that would be Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, there were talks for Ghostbusters 3 for a while. Apparently, the thing
for years,
the thing holding it up was that they couldn't get everyone on board with a single script. And then Harold Ramis's passing seems to have really put it into question. It pretty much killed it, the momentum.
Yeah.
Ghostbusters 3, a Ghostbusters movie that is a sequel to the first two is not going to happen. At least not with the original cast. But Paul Feig, director, who is famous for the movies The Heat and Bridesmaids.
No, Christ.
He is pushing to do we're not sure if it's going to be a reboot of Ghostbusters or if it's going to be a sequel of some kind, but he wants to do a Ghostbusters movie with an all-female main cast in which all the Ghostbusters are women. That's something he's pushing. And
so it's not so much of a reboot as a reboob.
But yeah, people aren't sure. Is he talking about just a remake, a reboot with an all-female main cast, or is this going to be a sequel where it's the daughters of the original? Or
so is this something that's confirmed to be happening, or is
it's
this?
Not. As far as I know, it's not confirmed. He said it's an idea he wants to do. Sony is basically, from what I understand. Sony, who owns the rights to the Ghostbusters film franchise, has been targeting him for a while to be the director.
Sounds kind of ominous.
Of a third one. But he apparently answered Sony saying, I've got an idea, now that, Harold Ramis is dead and, an original cast sequel is out of the question. Let's do an all-female Ghostbusters. So, it's not official, hasn't been confirmed, but it does seem like it's a direction he wants to pursue. And, seeing as he is the guy who, as far as I know, is the only real candidate in discussion for continuing the franchise, I think we have to accept that this is going to be a thing that has a very real chance of happening. I think it goes without saying that if this movie does happen, Melissa McCarthy will be in it. And that's already starting things off on a sour note for me. Of course, she was in his movie Bridesmaids. She was one half of the kind of starring role in The Heat along with Sandra Bullock. And she's also going to be in an upcoming film of his called Just Do It. So, yeah, Melissa McCarthy will probably be involved in this movie in some form if it happens. And truth be told, she's had some funny roles, but it's getting to the point where it's painfully obvious that everything she does is the same in every movie.
I would think, since she was in Bridesmaids, that Katherine Heigl would be. Wait, am I thinking the right movie?
Bridesmaids? I don't think
Oh, no, that was 27 Dresses. Never mind. I get these movies mixed up.
Yeah, no. Katherine Heigl was not in Bridesmaids. No. I don't know. It's just sort of gone to the point where Melissa McCarthy's almost become the female Rob Schneider, almost, in that.
Oh, dear God.
Like, when she's in a movie, or Adam Sandler, just one of those comedic actors who always is the same person.
Yeah, how many times can we remake, or how many times can we put the same character in a new movie, basically?
Yeah, I mean, you look at all of her characters, there's Bridesmaids, she was in The Heat. What was that other one she was in, along Jason Bateman? It was like the credit card fraud movie.
I don't know. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I can't. It's not coming to mind. It's not coming to mind. She was also in The Hangover Part 3. But it's just it's the same character. Identity Theft. That was the movie.
So I mean, okay.
She's overweight. She's crass and street smart, but she's got a good heart. That is her. That is the character she portrays in every movie she's in. And again, it's a weird thing to bring up because this concept, we don't even know if it's going to happen, much less who's going to be starring in it. But if it's an all-female cast and Paul Feig is directing, it stands to reason that McCarthy would be involved, since they have collaborated in movies that have, primary female leading roles. And McCarthy in Ghostbusters, in a Ghostbusters remake or sequel or whatever this would end up being, it would just be more of the same, and I'm not interested in that.
So, okay. Now, quick answer to one. Now, I have not seen Bridesmaids. I've not seen The Heat either. Was that also a chick flick?
It kind of was. It was a female buddy cop movie.
Okay. Now, that being said, why? Okay, don't take anything I'm going to say, people, as, misogynistic or what have you.
Send your hate mail to
basically
at gmail.com.
Okay. Ghostbusters is about, Ghostbusters is universally loved by both genders. I think it's safe to say.
My mom's not a big fan of it, but that's only because when it was in theaters, my dad took her to see it 7 times.
That would do it. But okay, that aside, why is Sony courting basically a chick flick director for a Ghostbusters sequel or a reboot? I'd
imagine they're targeting him because even though Bridesmaids was a chick flick, I did see it. It's a chick flick, but it's also got a comedic element to it. It's very much a comedy too.
Right.
So,
but okay, my next question is, kind of a two-parter. Why do we need? Okay, I'm not against an all-female lead cast for a Ghostbusters reboot. My question is, what is the point of doing that? My second question is, if this guy directs it, can he do it as an actual, sci-fi comedy and not as a chick flick comedy? No one wants to see a Ghostbusters chick flick. I don't even think the women would want to see that. Our geekettes out there, I don't think you guys would want to see this. Mm-hmm. What would be the point of doing this besides diversity?
Yeah.
If you're doing it, it's my same standpoint on changing anything about a character who's already been developed and people have like a set image of what they should be. If you have a reason behind doing it, a real legitimate reason, then fine, awesome. But if you're doing it just to be different, just to make yourself different from the original, no, that's not the right reason to do it. Indeed.
There is like, okay, I guess a big thing about this is a good example is the Fantastic Four reboot they're doing. Now, they have got Michael B. Jordan, not Michael Jordan, no, Michael B. Jordan, playing Johnny Storm / the Human Torch. Michael B. Jordan is black, obviously. Johnny Storm, traditionally depicted as white. And when asked about it, the producer said, "Look, we didn't set up to cast a black guy, but he auditioned for the role, and he was the best choice." And that's fine.
Right.
But when you set out and say, okay, from the get-go, we are going to do an all-female Ghostbusters movie, it sounds like you're turning the fact that it's an all-female cast into a gimmick.
Right.
And I'm not sure if that is the kind of thing you want to be going for. You know, if this is all in the name of diversity or being progressive, I'm not sure how making an all-female cast into a gimmick is going to help in that regard. And that seems to be what Paul Feig has been doing. The Heat, Bridesmaids, both which I'd say the thing that both have in common is that they both have all-female leads. And it kind of seems like that's his gimmick at this point, and I'm not sure if that's... It seems more like it's pandering to people who want to see something progressive instead of actually being meaningfully progressive, if that makes any sense.
Right. I mean, okay, meaningfully progressive isn't... and this is kind of going to maybe skirt a little bit into the political, and for that I apologize. I don't mean to. But, you know, meaningfully progressive is saying, okay, well, whoever is the best person for the job, be they black, white, male, female, gay, straight, whatever, gets the fucking job. Not, oh, hey, okay, we're going to make these people deliberately, you know, insert gender, ethnicity, orientation here because progressive. That's a recipe for a shit movie unless the script actually calls for it and there's a reason for it. I mean, of course, you know, even if you're making a movie about, you know, gay people, homosexuals, you don't have, there are straight actors who play those and vice versa. Lots of gay people have played straight people. I mean, that's kind of a different thing. But when you're talking,
Harris on
right.
How I Met Your Mother.
Right, exactly. And, I still like, Field Marshal Neil Patrick Harris though from, Starship Troopers.
Oh, SS Doogie Howser.
Awesome. Yes, SS Doogie Howser. Fucking awesome. But, so I mean, you know, there's that, and then there's, you know, being truly progressive, just not caring, just saying, hey, whoever is the best person for this job is who we're going to pick. There's a difference between that and saying, okay, we have to be progressive, and so, you know, you can't have men, you can't have black women, you can't have whatever. That's just, in my opinion, just discrimination of a different sort. And either something is categorically right or it's categorically wrong when it comes to something like that. There's really no middle area. Mm-hmm. You've got to just sit down and say, hey, we want to make a good movie. Not, hey, let's make a movie about a bunch of chicks who beat the shit out of ghosts. No one wants to, I don't think anyone wants to see that movie. I mean, you're sacrificing fucking Ghostbusters of all goddamn things on the altar of political correctness at that point. And granted, I might be going off on a bit of a tangent here, but it almost seems like if you're courting a director who this is kind of his shtick, this is what he does, you kind of know what you're getting. And it almost sounds like instead he's coming back to Sony and saying, maybe, hey, I'll do your movie if you let me do this. Mm-hmm. And that's wrong. This is, I would rather see this movie not be made than for it to be some kind of, again, you know, sacrificing Ghostbusters at the altar of political correctness. End of rant.
Yeah, I can agree with large parts of that. The big thing is, and you brought up the point where it's like, I'd rather see this movie not be made. And, I wanna bring up another 80s film franchise that got a reboot. We talked about it actually, the RoboCop movie.
Yeah, another movie that did not need to be made.
Now we had kinder things to say about it than most did.
Only because of Samuel L. Jackson as Bill O'Reilly. I mean, let's be honest. When we seen that, we were like, okay.
No, I have to admit, when you told me about that, when you told me that was a thing, I was
why am I not watching this movie now?
Yeah, no, that turned my reaction from maybe I'll see it if I have some free time to I am going to go see this movie. But again, this movie was anyone calling for a Ghostbusters for a RoboCop remake, and it happened, and people shit on it, and it's sort of one of those things where it's like, wouldn't it have been better to just sort of leave RoboCop alone, leave it as a sort of, I don't want to say relic, because that seems more negative than I'm trying to say, but maybe like sort of just leave it as part of the 80s that, people can go back to. It's not like, kids born in the 90s are incapable of finding RoboCop.
Yeah.
Of watching the original RoboCop movie. So it's sort of one of those things where, is Ghostbusters just better off left as a 2-film series, a really good movie that had an okay sequel, and just leave it at that? And anyone who wants to watch it, they can find it.
I'm not against the idea. I'm not against the idea categorically of rebooting. It's just that, and I think a lot of the resistance that people have to these 80s franchise reboots isn't that they don't necessarily want to see a reboot done. It's this this knee-jerk fear, and it's well-founded, of, oh my God, what the fuck are you going to do to it?
See, here's the thing. I tend to, a lot of people hate the idea of reboots. I don't, because reboots gave us the Nolan Batman trilogy, which in my opinion was excellent.
Right.
It gave us they rebooted the Bond series of Casino Royale, which again was excellent. Quantum of Solace was kind of meh, but they picked it back up for Skyfall.
Yeah.
And so in my mind, and of course Godzilla being a reboot. So
yeah, they're not categorically bad.
No, they're not.
It's just who do you have helming the reboot? What is your idea behind it? And this Ghostbusters thing, to me, just kind of reeks of everything that we instinctively dislike about reboots. Now, I know I'm being, to an extent, overly harsh, because we know nothing about this beyond the mere wisp of a rumor of an idea that's been floated out.
Melissa McCarthy will be in it, and she will be predictable, and I
mean, we don't even know that necessarily.
If this idea is greenlit, that's going to be the thing that happens. Trust me.
I just don't want I don't want any movie, especially a reboot of something as beloved as Ghostbusters, to be put in such a. Again, if you're looking for actors and you end up with an all-female cast because they just fit the characters that you have in mind, awesome, good to fucking go, do it. But just starting off and saying, okay, well, this is the way it's going to be, no, no.
Yeah, again, and kind of circling back to the skirting on the political a bit. But again, I don't see how turning the idea of a female lead into a gimmick seems like it does more harm for the cause of gender equality than good. With most things of that nature, yeah, I agree. And the thing is about the geek audience, I think we're a lot more receptive to strong female leads than a lot of other fan bases. Samus Aran in the Metroid series was very beloved until they turned her into one of the worst stereotypes of a woman you can imagine. God. Other M. Okay, if you want to see off topic, but if you want to see an example of how to write a female lead correctly and then how to write a female lead in absolutely the wrong way, just take a look at the Samus series. Yeah, and you don't even have to play Other M to find this out. You can actually go on YouTube, and I actually watched the entire. They edited it to where it's like one continuous movie, basically. So just the cutscenes.
Yeah, it was like an hour and a half long. I sat and I watched all of it. And I'm just like, my God, what the hell? Now, the flip side to, the geeks, us being, receptive of a female lead, the leads do tend to end up being a bit overly sexualized, which, I have to say, I don't have a problem with, but I don't necessarily care if they don't overly sexualize them either.
My issue with the overly sexualized thing is, and this mostly pertains to comic books, but I think it can be extrapolated to other medium as well, is that it harkens back to the days before the internet, where basically you had to work to get your pornography. And I'm just going to put it out there. That was the reason you put Catwoman in a skin-tight outfit where she might as well just be naked, and that's supposed to, get the reader's rocks off. Well, alright, fine. It was a different time, whatever. Gender equality was still kind of a battle being waged. At least it was a lot, farther from being one that it is today. Back then, the internet wasn't around. All these factors kind of combined to make it. Alright, fine. But it's 2014, people. We don't need female leads in skin-tight or close to skin-tight outfits anymore. It doesn't
hurt.
Well, it doesn't.
But
my point is that if you want to see that, and I'm not saying it's wrong to want to see that, but I'm saying if you want to see that, it's the internet, it's the age of the internet. Right. You can find porn for free with no hassle.
Yeah, it's not like when I was an adolescent discovering inner workings and such, and fucking JCPenney catalogs lingerie section for the win. Hey, it was a restricted household, okay? I made do with what I could. Here's my thing with overly sexualizing a female lead. I certainly don't mind if they do it, with the caveat that it doesn't interfere with the actual character themselves and how it's presented.
That's kind of the thing with Samus. For the longest time when they were writing Samus correctly, she mostly stayed in the body armor.
Right.
And she would even very rarely take her helmet off. But then, almost coincident. Again, I don't even think it's necessarily a coincidence, but when Other M comes out and they turn her into this codependent, whiny load
with severe daddy issues.
With severe daddy issues, like the worst stereotype of a woman that you could cobble together. And then it seems almost when that happens that she starts spending more and more time in her skin-tight blue outfit.
Yeah, and that's sexualization being detrimental to a character. I don't mind it as long as it doesn't interfere with the storytelling itself. And I know to some people they view those as mutually exclusive. I don't necessarily. It just takes, you gotta pull it off a bit. Like, okay, take Black Widow and the Avengers, for example, the movie. Fairly sexualized, she's definitely showing off the goods, but it didn't necessarily, it was part of the character in a way that wasn't obtrusive to me. And it, she used it as part of what she did. And it didn't keep her from, having her own way of doing things. It wasn't all that she was, basically. No, I think that was a way of doing it right.
Definitely. But then again, I tend to question why Black Widow and Hawkeye are considered equal members of the Avengers, because Black Widow is just like an assassin and Hawkeye is an assassin with an outdated means of killing people.
You know what? Because they're good help, it's hard to find. Hey, I want to be part of the Avengers. Okay, well, what's your ability? I'm great at finding coupons on the internet. You're hired!
Well, no, it's like Ant-Man. Paul Rudd can become tiny and ride around on an ant, and he's somehow a valuable member of a team that includes the God of Thunder, a genius wearing, power armor, a super soldier, and a rage monster. If
if they need a guy who can shrink, then just fucking strip down Tony Stark and put him outside on a cold day.
Okay, I don't want to get back on that rant because we trashed on Ant-Man last week.
Yeah, we've beaten that one to death. But
Ant-Man sucks. Don't see his movie. Anyway, but yeah, in terms of the sexualization of female leads, I'm just of the opinion that the sexualization is sort of a holdover from a different time where, teenage boys had to work hard to get their masturbation material. And I'm not even saying that's wrong. I'm just saying it's an element from a time that I think has been left in the past because, it's the age of the internet and you don't have to work hard to find pornography. So I just kind of see it as unnecessary. Again, with Black Widow, I agree with you. If the character itself is remains unscathed, then it's easy to overlook, and I generally don't have an issue with it. But kind of just coming from a philosophical standpoint, I'm thinking does this really need to be the way that female characters are dressed anymore? Does this need to be a thing?
It's something that I think it's not going to go away. And I have no problem with that. Again, I have no issue whatsoever with it. But write it well. Don't make it like, okay, she's a slut. You get it? She's a slut.
Turn her into Samus from Other M.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And that's definitely a perfect example of how not to write a female character.
I'm convinced someone at Nintendo lost a bet, and like the project director for Metroid lost a bet, and and as a result, they had to intentionally ruin their character.
Yeah.
God. But let's move on, sir, because we talked a bit about comic books, and there is a comic book movie coming out. I guess this is going to be part of DC's attempt to compete with Marvel, creating their own cinematic universe. Shazam!
Yeah.
Shazam, they have cast Shazam. I believe the plan is to debut him in his own standalone movie and then perhaps go from there.
Yeah.
And the casting choice, I got to admit, I personally am a fan. It is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, the most electrifying man in sports and entertainment.
But entertainment is sports, right?
It's a play off sports entertainment. Vince McMahon's bullshit.
I know. Well, so is what I said, but never mind. Yeah. Anyways, okay. Here's my thoughts on this. If you're going to have a wrestler try to act, then Dwayne Johnson is your least offensive choice for sure. I have no issue with the casting because I really don't give a rat's ass about Shazam.
Shazam's got an interesting history.
Well, yeah, I mean that's kind of cool and that is interesting. But I mean, just in terms of a vacuum with the movie itself, whatever. I really don't care. I mean, The Rock's not incapable. I think he's a decent enough actor. I think a lot of it is the movies he gets in.
Well, there was that period where he was doing just mostly kids movies for Disney.
Yeah. The Tooth Fairy.
There was the Tooth Fairy. There's that football movie he did. I forgot what it was, but he played some star football player who found out he had a long lost daughter, and then whoop-de-doo, now he's got to be a dad!
Oh wow.
So,
that's never been done.
But yeah, no. Ever? The Rock did some not so great movies there. But I actually have liked The Rock in a lot of what he's done. He was in one, I keep forgetting the title of it. It's when he was with Sean William Scott. He goes to South America to beat some people up.
Yeah, I know the exact movie you're talking about. I too do not know its fucking name. I'm sure someone will be happy to tell us, in the comments.
He was also he also did Walking Tall, and I thought he did a good job in that.
Yeah, that was really good. I mean, any movie about bad people getting the shit beat out of them with 2x4s or 4x4s, I'm fucking down. I'm down with that all day long. So I mean, and this, this doesn't seem like some kind of cheesy ass, Disney production or WWE production. I mean,
well, it's DC, so it's gonna be Warner Brothers.
Right. You're right. It's gonna be Warner. So I mean, that's good. He's actually
Ted Turner's happy.
Yeah, he's actually getting with a real company this time. Well, I mean, Disney's a real company, but some of their movies, dear God. So I mean, that's good. I don't have much exposure to Shazam. I'm aware of the basic premise of the story, and that's really about it. Well, I'm not against it. I'm not for it either. I'm just kind of like, okay, well, that's the thing, whatever.
I like Shazam. Again, the character's got a unique history. He was conceived actually as a Marvel character, and his original name was actually Captain Marvel. Problem is, he was a blatant ripoff of Superman. DC sued, and as a result, got the rights to the character. And so Captain Marvel would always yell Shazam to get his superpowers, so Shazam just sort of became the character's name under the DC banner. And I think that's interesting, again, because he was conceived as sort of a Superman knockoff. It's always fun in DC when you get to see Superman and Shazam square off. They did, the most notable one was in the Elseworld story, Kingdom Come. Excellent series. Easily one of my favorite things DC Comics has actually ever done.
Okay, so sorry, go on.
And another interesting thing of note is that the first thing that we could call a superhero movie was focused on Shazam. Shazam was in a short serial back in the 30s, I think, that is really the first, quote unquote superhero movie. So, Shazam's got a history there. And because his powers are mythologically based, they come from magic, there's kind of a rich lore and mythology to his backstory that you can that a movie can really take advantage of. So, I don't have a problem with the casting. I don't really. The movie had the plot in and of it, just by its very nature, could have potential just due to the world that Shazam inhabits. And if this is going to be part of DC's ongoing attempt to create their own cinematic universe, then that might mean that we get Shazam vs. Superman on the big screen. And you know what? I pay to see that. So I don't have a problem with this.
And that kind of puts me what I was about to say earlier. Okay, should we place our bets now on whether or not this movie actually ends up getting made, or if they just add Shazam to Batman versus Superman?
Oh, God. Shazam shows up for 2 seconds. I am Shazam. And then he leaves.
I am Shazam. That is all. And then fucking leaves. And they're like, what the fuck? Really? What?
Yeah, God. I mean, what's the count up to on Batman v Superman? Got Batman, Superman, got Lex Luthor, Wonder Woman, Aquaman. I think the Catwoman was a rumor. So
the Flash.
The Flash. Yeah, and I've heard some people say that Arrow from the TV show is going to show up.
Only if he gets to keep the same quality of costume he has now.
And then Ra's al Ghul will show up, and like Batman and Arrow will be, and the Green Arrow will be on the screen at the same time, and he won't know who to fight. And then Green Arrow will be like, I ripped off Batman Begins, because that's the entire plot to my 3rd season. Okay, moving on.
Yeah. So, yeah, Shazam, that's a thing. The Rock playing him, definitely not a bad casting choice. Not sure how good it will end up being, but The Rock seems to be capable enough. So, far more offensive things out there in the land of superhero movies. I'm kind of looking at this one with not really any apprehension or excitement. It's just kind of, again, like, okay, so that's the thing. It might be good.
When, when Shazam fights Superman on screen, I want The Rock to just turn into The Rock and just have Shazam do a wrestling promo.
That would be good.
It's like Superman be like, don't you know who I am? I'm Superman. It doesn't matter who you are!
No, damn it, we need the Ultimate Warrior back from the beyond to fight Superman.
Superman, the power of the Puma gods, compels the Destrucity to destroy you!
What? Bam! Yeah.
Okay, I think that exhausts our movie news for the moment.
Pretty much, yeah. Now, I know you mentioned something about, because we're in that time of the year where we do the, where the corporations do their second quarter earnings calls. And I know you had a little bit of an update regarding the WWE network.
I did, yes. We talked about the WWE before. On this, we had an extensive conversation. We've also had significant conversations on basically a sports show about it. Well, Greg and I have. Zach is bored to tears because he doesn't watch wrestling. Point being, the second quarter earnings report came out, and things aren't looking too good.
Well, it depends on how deep you dig. Now, you said superficially it looks like they've had a modest subscriber gain. They're up to what, 700K now, technically on paper?
They're up to 700K. Yes, 700,000. The first report was I think 4 months ago was 660,000. So we're looking around a 40,000 increase. Two problems with this. One, it's not 1 million.
Right.
And two, and again, I want to stress that even if they hit 1 million by the end of the year, they're still losing between 40 and 50 million. So
right.
We haven't even gotten to the point where they're losing, where 40 million is losing 40 million is optimistic. But secondly is that the core number is up, except for the fact that around 128,000 people have canceled their subscriptions between now and then, between the last time that these numbers were updated to now. And anyone familiar with the WWE network might be going, how can that happen? I thought you had to commit for 6 months. And you do, except that people have found ways around it. People who pay via PayPal have simply just stopped adding money to their PayPal account. So, the PayPal account is zero, so the subscription cancels. People have even gone so far as to cancel the credit card that they've put the network on.
Now, here's my question about that. Is this actually a confirmed case of, oh my god, I hate this shit so bad I'm canceling my fucking card? Or is it a case of, the card just expires on its own, whatever expiration date, what the hell ever, and then they just don't, right. So this may not be a case of the product being so bad, people are like, oh my god, fuck you, and canceling their card for it. This is a case of, for whatever reason it may be, either through natural means or deliberately, the cards are ended up becoming invalid, and they are, as a result, not re-upping, and they're subscribing. So there's some gray area here with this churn. Some of these people may be re-enrolling. Some of this 40,000 that they gained could be people who, got new cards and re-upped. Possibly even.
Indeed. Now, the big thing from WWE's quarterly report was that in 2015, they addressed a plan to make this whole thing viable. And it seems that they've given up on trying to reach 1 million.
They've given up on trying to make it viable.
No. They're going to try to make it viable with the general range of subscribers they have now. And what they plan on doing is cutting, I think they said in 2015 they will cut 10% of the company's expenses. And the hope is that by making these cuts, the network will become financially viable at 500,000 subscribers. Now, the beginnings of this occurred right after Vince McMahon announced this. A number of wrestlers in WWE's developmental territory called NXT Wrestling were cut, let go.
Right.
and that's that's going to be interesting to see how this affects the main roster, how this affects the TV product.
Well, that's kind of stupid. I mean, okay, on one hand, you've got this abomination that's hemorrhaging your company money. Mm-hmm. So what do you don't pull the plug on that. No, you bite the hand that feeds you your core thing that makes you all this money, and you start lopping pieces off of it to sustain the thing that's losing you money.
Well, the problem is that at least as far as WWE is concerned, there is no going back on the network, because when they announced the network out of the blue without consulting their pay-per-view provider, the companies that carry their pay-per-views.
Right, and they lost a lot of that. Yeah.
And they lost a lot of that. So in WWE's mind, the network, they can't go back on the network because that would mean crawling back to the pay-per-view providers, and they don't want to do that. It's sort of like, they've crossed the Rubicon, and they are convinced they have to live or die by this network.
And the thing is, a company, a corporation cannot afford to have that mindset. I mean, we've discussed this before. Mm-hmm. And this is another horse that we've kind of beaten into the ground, but I just wanted to get the update out there as to where that is, because I know you referenced it last show that they were going to be having that coming up. Mm-hmm. So I thought it might be interesting to see kind of, where the numbers were on that subscriber-wise.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see it's going to be interesting to see, one, how these cuts affect the on-screen presentation, the on-screen product of the company in 2015. And two, it's going to be interesting to see if those cuts actually do make the network viable. The way that these numbers seem to be trending, and anyone listening to this show is being recorded 2 days after the Raw that aired on August 4th.
Yeah, this is Wednesday, August 6th.
The reason why I bring up the date is because on August 4th, Monday Night Raw aired. And anyone who watched that Raw saw just how blatantly cheap they were shilling the network. They are trying to do everything. It's actually funny. Triple H came out and almost made a joke of how often he was mentioning just $9.99 a month. And then the commentators tried to get $9.99 trending on Twitter.
Oh, Jesus.
By hashtag 9.99, except that you can't actually get that to trend on Twitter because it won't recognize the decimal. So, but yeah, no, I don't know. Again, it's going to be interesting to see how successful they are in trying to cut payroll to the point that this thing is viable. But, I don't know, man. At the end of the day, the current subscription, everyone who signed up on day one, that subscription runs out after SummerSlam in August, at the end of this month. SummerSlam is the last. After that, everyone has to renew if they signed up on day one. Well, so that 660,000 that signed up on day one, they have to renew. The next 6 months, there's really no big show. There's going to be Night of Champions in September, which is kind of a B-level show, but apparently they're going to try to make it really big this year to get people to subscribe. Then there's going to be Hell in the Cell in October. That's like a C-level thing. November is Survivor Series, which is traditionally one of WWE's big pay-per-views, but it's sort of fallen off that in recent years since they stopped doing the Survivor Series team matchups that kind of made the pay-per-view unique.
Right.
You've got what is the pay-per-view in December? Is it still TLC? Is it still TLC? I don't know, but that's just know-nothing pay-per-view that's just wasting time. Then you've pretty much got the Royal Rumble, starts the road to WrestleMania. Let's see. Then, Elimination Chamber, and then, you'll have to subscribe again for WrestleMania 31. Point being that there's going to be very little to entice people to come back. So,
which is probably why they're setting their sustainability numbers at 500,000. Mm-hmm. They're probably anticipating a drop of about 200,000 at least, because there's just nothing worth subscribing for.
And again, I'll tell you what would be a big thing. And again, I would have touched on this earlier, but as I've said before, I don't have the network because being in Canada, don't have access to it. But they did announce during that conference call that the network will be available in Canada via a subscription. It's going to be a thing on TV that you order via Rogers.
Okay.
So I'll just call up Rogers and be like, hey, I want like the WWE network. And they'll be like, go to channel whatever. And then I'll go to that channel and I'll have the network. But I don't have it. At least not yet. So I wasn't even aware that these weren't in, and then I heard that they hadn't even uploaded this to the show, to the network, and I was kind of going, what? But, they have yet to add any episodes of WCW Nitro or WCW Saturday Night. And, I gotta tell you, look, I'm a WCW fan who stayed with professional wrestling after WCW closed because I was 13 when WCW went under, and I was still young enough to sort of jump ship and still want to watch this stuff. But if you look at the pre-Monday Night War, if you look at the Monday Night War viewership numbers, and then you look at the post-Monday Night War viewership numbers, when WCW went under, there were around 5 million WCW fans who simply stopped watching wrestling.
Right.
And if the WWE network would put, I mean, currently you do have access to all the WCW /NWA pay-per-views and all of the NWA WCW Clash of Champions, but TV specials, but you don't have the two flagship shows of the promotion, that being WCW Saturday Night and WCW Monday Nitro. And if you put, and there's a lot of great material to be found, a lot of great matches, a lot of great moments to be found on both of those shows. And if the WWE would put those shows up on the network and then find a way to market it to those WCW fans, I'm not saying 5 million ex-WCW fans would subscribe to the network, but I am saying that, one, it wouldn't hurt, and two, having some of those old WCW shows on the network would probably get a couple here and there to say, you know what, for $10 a month, a little nostalgia's worth it.
Right. So,
I don't know. Vince has always sort of been weird about WCW. The WCW DVDs always sell well. There's generally an interest for the WCW brand. I don't know. In my opinion, Vince is still kind of pissed off that Nitro kind of kicked Raw's ass for 2 years straight, and I don't know, maybe he's holding it against WCW fans. Like, no, you don't get to see the shows of your favorite company. But whatever. The fact that WCW Saturday Night and WCW Monday Nitro aren't on the show, aren't on the network, is incredibly befuddling to me.
Maybe they'll wisen up and put it on there. I do kind of agree with your idea that it could be kind of a spite thing. Whenever it comes to Vince McMahon, I tend to think of his personality in whatever lowest common denominator is available.
That's generally a safe assumption.
Yeah, exactly. And if there's a chance that he's just being a petty little bitch, then chances are he's just being a petty little bitch.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. I mean, I'm happy that Sting signed with WWE because we'll get to see Sting on TV again, but when it comes to WCW main eventers in the WWE, the track record is not that great because Vince McMahon tends to say, "You're not my creation, so you're going to be embarrassed on my television show." That's just the way that he operates. Maybe the fact that Triple H is now having more of a say in how the TV shows are developed will change things, because I know Triple H is a fan of the old WCW and NWA days, and he tends to be more of a fan of the history of wrestling in general, so maybe that'll make things better, as he takes over more and more of the company. But, putting those old TV shows on the network would be a huge plus, and you know what? It might make a few lapsed WCW fans decide to, plunk down $10 a month to watch some of their old favorite moments.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line here is, if you're going to run a subscription-based service, you have to, there's two ways. You have to be viable. You have to keep it viable, and you can either do that by having enough built-in base to where you can afford to lose quite a bit. But to prevent that, you need to keep content new, keep it as fresh as you can. And they're not doing either at this point. So, we'll see.
But, another company that did their, quarterly reports was, Blizzard Entertainment.
Yes. Yeah, and kind of the same thing here to an extent, though much more rosy, of course. We discussed this, whenever they did the quarter one earnings report. I think that's usually April. Mm-hmm. So we discussed it back in April when they'd actually, were on the uptick by 100,000 subscribers. One thing you got to keep in mind for the uninitiated, WoW at its peak had 12.5 million subscribers. Your average. That
was at the end of Lich King, correct?
Right. That was at the end of Wrath of the Lich King, which was the third expansion, and going into the fourth expansion, which was called Cataclysm, and God ever was it. And so, I keep waiting for the porn spoof called Scataclysm.
Well, there was Wrath of the Bitch Queen, right?
No, that was another one that I came up with.
Oh, I thought that was a real thing.
No, that was just one that I came up with while being drunk and lolsy one night. Okay. No, the actual porn spoof was called World of Horcraft.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've watched it. It's actually pretty funny. But anyways, I digress. So, since then, WoW has been on the kind of the downtick a bit. With the exception of being at the start of Mists of Pandaria when it shot back up to 10 million subscribers, still a net loss of 2 million. And Blizzard did their second quarter earnings call the other day. I actually believe yesterday or day before. And they're now down to 6.8 million subscribers. Two things to keep in mind about this. One, there are a lot of people who have been singing the WoW was dying song since Cataclysm. No, it's really not. Though I've noticed, every time these numbers come out, and if there's a drop, I kind of scan over the comments real quick. There's not as many people saying WoW was dying now.
Well, I think people have clued in that even at 6.8 million subscribers, WoW is still by far the largest MMORPG out there.
Right. I mean, its next highest competitor.
Would that be Guild Wars 2? Is that the next highest?
Maybe. I don't know. I should really do some research into that and see what the subscriber bases or the player bases for some of these are, because Guild Wars 2 doesn't actually require a monthly subscription. You buy the game and you're done. Mm-hmm. But you do have other subscription-based MMOs, two of which, well, you've got the other big one, which is EVE Online. I don't know what their subscriber base is. I think it's around 2 million, 1 million.
And
something around there.
And then there's, what is it, EverQuest?
There's EverQuest, but that's gone free to play.
Okay.
You can buy like perks and shit. You buy an expansion. It's kind of, Sony did something kind of weird with EverQuest. It's like it's free to play unless you want like the newer content, and then you pay for it. You pay for it one time, and then they have a bunch of other shit you can buy. Mm-hmm. You've got two other subscription-based MMOs, both of which are really recent. Mm-hmm. Elder Scrolls Online and WildStar.
I've heard Elder Scrolls was one of the recent ones that's gonna kill WoW.
Right. And
I've heard it's actually terrible.
The only thing that ESO has accomplished in killing is itself. It's
I've heard it's a terrible game. I haven't played it, but I've heard bad things.
Everything that I've heard, from the gamer community, I have not played it myself because, frankly, Elder Scrolls, Skyrim was good, but it wasn't all that. I mean, I had a fun time playing it. It was not a bad game by any means.
You got your handmaid killed.
If you want to make an omelet, sir, you got to break a few eggs. And that bitch is gone. If there's a way to get her back, I sure as hell don't know it, because we were like, oh hey, well we'll just go back and we'll get another one. I mean, surely there's like some kind of hatchery for these things, right? No, And no, bitch, you done lost her. She gone. She dead. But so you have ESO, which is evidently already hemorrhaging subscribers, and it's 3 months old maybe. And you've got the new one, WildStar,
which is basically WoW in space.
Oh my god, okay. WildStar, because I don't think we've ever talked about WildStar on the show.
Let's talk a bit about WildStar.
Yeah, it's a brand new MMO, like brand spanking new. I'm not even sure if it's actually in release yet. I think it might be in like very late beta. Mm-hmm. No, I think it's in release. It's just now been released within the last maybe month or so. And so you've got that, and it was done by a lot of former WoW developers who said they wanted to, quote unquote, do WoW right. Now, here's the thing. I'm not going to evaluate this game because I've never played it. Everyone that I've heard of who's played it said it's fun.
But it looks like WoW.
Right. It looks like it should be lots of fun because it looks just like WoW. And it seems to already be having a hard time. Like, I mean, there are people playing it, but it just seems to not really kind of be getting off the ground very much. I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong. Yeah, I mean, even WoW itself took a while to get going, but it just looks so much like World of Warcraft that it's almost redundant to me at least. I mean, this is just one person's opinion who's not played the game, but I've watched a lot of streaming of it, and I've talked to, a fair number of people who have played it. Various streamers and such and people in the community. And they're like, yeah, it's fun. I enjoy it. But, and I asked, well, what's different from WoW? And I haven't really ever gotten a real concrete answer beyond some game mechanics, that are different. And it's evidently a lot harder than WoW. It's a lot more difficult. It's meant to be, more back to that vanilla experience from World of Warcraft. That thing again. And
anytime, if you're discussing World of Warcraft, just tell the person to shut up anytime they say things were better in vanilla. No. I never played during vanilla WoW, but I've heard a lot about it. I've read up on it. And vanilla WoW sounds like it's terrible.
Yeah, we had this, Mike and I had this, we had this mage in our guild. Her name was Grinny. Wonderful woman, great player, and she was
back, Grinny.
Yeah, Grinny, if you hear us, come the fuck back, Jesus. But, no, so, we were talking to her one night, and we're like, hey, so you were back around in vanilla, right? Because Mike and I, we started playing during Wrath. And she's like, yeah, I did. I'm like, okay, so I always hear all these people saying, oh, it was so much better in vanilla. Was it? She's like, oh, fuck no. It was horrible. Like, you couldn't, getting anywhere was impossible in terms of, raiding progression. You had to have 40 people to raid, and fuck, it's hard enough to get 10 people together.
Yeah, you try putting a raid together and wow, try to get 10 warm bodies to show up on time.
And the raids were tuned such that, you might think, okay, well, if you need 40, I'm sure you could do without a couple. I'm sure you could go with 38. No, because that's how the raids were tuned. Man, you needed them 40 people, and all 40 of them had to be doing the right thing at the right fucking time, or your ass wasn't getting nowhere.
In vanilla WoW, if you wanted to run Molten Core, or Onyxia.
Right. Molten Core, Onyxia, Blackwing Lair.
You needed 40 people. And if you had 39, you were fucked. If you got everybody on the same page and was there, if one guy had to go make a grilled cheese, you were fucked.
Gotta go. My mashed potatoes are done. And okay. For the nostalgic vanilla BC crowd, I hear ya. Mike and I have nostalgia for Wrath of the Lich King. We're like, oh man, Wrath was so awesome and we wish it could be more like that. And, so you guys are the same way, just a different expansion. We all seem to be nostalgic for the time when we first began playing the game, when everything was new and fresh, and you're immersed in this amazing world with all this cool shit to do and all that.
Now every time I use my Hearthstone, a dwarf laughs at me.
Yeah, me too. I was like, you suck. Oh, fuck you, dwarf. God damn it. But, so I get it. But the difference between, I think, players like me and Mike and the really hardcore vanilla BC people is that we recognize things for what they are. It's not going to be like Wrath again. It's not going to be like Burning Crusade again. And it's not going to be like fucking vanilla. It's sure as hell not going to be like vanilla again. And
here's the. I just want to point out something. We mentioned how Cataclysm was a cataclysm in terms of subscription numbers. At the launch of Cataclysm, at the end of Wrath of the Lich King, WoW had 12 million subscribers. The vast majority of people who quit WoW quit during Cataclysm, during early Cataclysm. And you want to know what? Early Cataclysm was their attempt to make it more like vanilla again. So,
yeah,
in terms of things are better in vanilla, no they weren't, because when they tried to make the game more like vanilla, people stopped playing.
Right. And the thing is, there's always this very vocal minority. Oh, the game is too easy. The game is too easy. And have they dumbed things down a bit? Have they catered to the casuals quite a bit?
Casual!
Yeah. They have, I admit, and has it been to the detriment of the game? In some cases, yes.
Yeah, Raid Finder was a big mistake.
But is it killing the game? No. It's really not. Okay, if something is too easy for you, then just don't do it. There's plenty of quote-unquote challenging content that you can go do. You've got
Blizzard is making $15 a month off of 6.8 million people. Okay, that's all.
Yeah.
WoW's not dying.
No, it's not dying. Now, I do have, my only concern is, okay, it's easy to sit and say, well, WoW is far and above the most profitable, successful MMO that currently exists or ever has existed, and that has not changed and is not showing any signs of changing. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you gotta wonder, okay, well, how much money, though, does it take? What subscriber base has to be maintained for them to continue the same level of quality and development standards that they have now?
Well, I think
what level of income is necessary to support that, and that's what I worry about.
I've got two things that that alleviate those fears, at least on my end. One, Blizzard is owned by Activision, and they are owned by a much larger, much more profitable company than themselves. And it never hurts to be part of a corporate empire with deep pockets, at least as far as your costs go. Two, I'm not all that concerned about this dip to 6.8 million subscribers, because the fact of the matter is that this game hasn't seen new content in about a year.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. And that's kind of, that's, again, kind of going back to where the situation WWE is in. They're not having enough content to keep their subscribers, even though it's a new network. They're not putting out all the content that they could be to make this potentially viable. Mm-hmm. Likewise with Blizzard. Here's the thing really frustrating about WoW, though, in terms of content. Now, I mean, I've just come back after a long hiatus, and I've had plenty to do. My God, I've been running around like a chicken with its head cut off. But
that's because you came back from a long hiatus. If you had been playing for the past 6 months.
Right. Yeah, and like I came back, I don't know, about 2 weeks ago, and first thing I got on, and me and Mike started running shit. I've worn this poor bastard out I don't know how many times. I'm tired, man. I'm tired. No, one more dungeon. Come on, we can do this. And so, there's that, but that's just my case. And there has not been any new content in roughly 1 year. The last raid release was Siege of Orgrimmar, which is, I've ran it now, though only in quote unquote tourist mode on Raid Finder, because I don't have, we don't have the gear yet to really do the next level up from that. Mm-hmm. It seems like a well put together raid. It's not the best one I've ever ran, but again, I kind of have the rose colored glasses, and for me, Ulduar, in Lich King was the best raid
I don't like Ulduar.
I know you don't like Ulduar. With, Naxxramas, which was actually a recycled vanilla raid, being my second favorite. And ICC was a good raid. I don't know. Maybe it's just that I ended up running it so much I got a little bit burned out on it. I don't know. Mm-hmm. We did have a lot of good times running it, though. And Siege of Orgrimmar reminds me a lot more of ICC than, say, Fall of Deathwing,
which was the end raid
Dragon
for
Soul. Dragon Soul was the name of it. Dragon Soul,
which was the end raid for Cataclysm. Which
Which
they build up Deathwing, this entire expansion, as this world-destroying dragon, and then when you finally fight him, you just hit his fingers a bunch of times, and then he seemingly just gives up on life and lays his head down for you to hit.
Yeah, now, okay, in Blizzard's defense on that one, I mean, okay, Deathwing was the size of fucking Godzilla, if not bigger. And I guess that level of scale, they didn't have a way of really working in the way that they would like to. But the finale, the rest of the raid is really well constructed. I like the rest of the raid. Even the first part of the Deathwing encounter, the spine of Deathwing, is really cool because you're on his back while he's flying, and you're literally knocking these metal plates off of his back, because basically the lore behind that is he's so corrupted by evil that his body is literally falling apart, and he's not cybernetic, but he is held together by iron plates on his body to keep him from literally falling apart. And you're whacking these iron plates off of his back, and the actual nerves in his back are raising up to try to fight you off. And that's a pretty cool fight. But then you get down where you're just basically, fucking up his manicure. And then he gets so tired of having his fingertips bashed that he just gets depressed and lays his head down on the table on a rock, and you just fucking bash his brains in. And that just seemed really anticlimactic. And I guess from a design standpoint, they're like, okay, well, what the fuck can we do? But yeah, the gist of this, what my point is, yes, WoW is down 800,000 subscribers. But that, I don't think anyone's really even saying that this is because of the health of the game. It's because of Blizzard, after time and time again of saying, well, we're going to start getting content out faster. We're going to start producing faster content. We want a 1-year development cycle. They've been saying this now for years. And not only are they not delivering it, they're actually getting further away from it, if that's possible.
Well, okay. I was playing when Lich King gave way to Cataclysm, and I was playing when Cataclysm gave way to Pandaria.
Right.
And at least it didn't seem to me like there was this long of a gap between the final raid being released and the new expansion. Like, I don't think Lich King went from the release of ICC and then went a full year of nothing until Kata. And I don't think Kata went from the release of Dragon Souls to a full year of nothing.
The gap from ICC to Cataclysm was about this long. It actually was. I know it didn't seem like it because our guild was running behind at that point in terms of progression, and then of course some things happened on our end with us here, and we weren't able to raid for that part while you guys kept going on. But there was that thing with ICC where it lasted almost a year. And we just didn't notice it because we were still trying to get through ICC. I think I just figured it out. It's Raid Finder's fault. I'll tell you why. Because I've been saying that for years.
But if you were running ICC back in the day, right? And it doesn't matter if you're in 10-man or 20, or if you were in 10-man or 25-man. That's inconsequential. The fact of the matter was that if you were running ICC, you spent that year between ICC's release and Cataclysm slowly going through.
Right.
You'd spend maybe months on a single boss, you down them, you'd move on to the next boss. Right. And it was a slow progression, but it really made that year seem uneventful. I don't mean uneventful. I mean, it made that year seem like something new was always happening because you were always progressing further. But now that's Raid Finder, Siege of Orgrimmar comes out, you wait a few weeks, you can run the whole thing in an afternoon.
Right.
And then now now essentially you've seen all the new content, you've beaten everything, only a couple days into the release of Siege of Orgrimmar, and now you've got a year of nothing to do.
Right, exactly. And that's what and I guess now it just clicked for you, but I know you and I have talked about this in the past, and that was the argument that I was trying to make, and I probably didn't make it very well. I probably didn't state it correctly. But, in Lich King, when you didn't have Raid Finder, we took most of that time trying to get through ICC. And by God, when we finally had to stop raiding because your tank and healer were suddenly gone, your tank and one of your healers at least was suddenly gone, that, we had almost gotten there. Yeah. We were getting in that last wing, and we were so close. We knew that any week now we would make the breakthrough, and we would get to Arthas, and then that would have been probably another fucking month and a half of trying to get him down. And But you had that keeping you busy and keeping you occupied to where you really didn't notice that Blizzard wasn't adding content because you were still trying to push through the content that they'd already added.
Exactly. In Lich King, nothing new was added, but it still took you a full year to complete the content they did add.
And Blizzard has complained before that, or not complained, but stated that the player's ability to pace through the content has always exceeded their ability to create it. Well, and of course, you're going to have that, but they're making it easier to do that.
No, exactly. That might be a case, but that may be the case, but at the same time, yeah, it's not helping Raid Finder's not helping them, because now, thanks to Raid Finder, you can do everything there is to do. Very easily. And now, that year that used to be spent progressing through that final raid, there's now nothing to hold your interest.
Right. And, for the player who only wants to see content, Raid Finder is good. But that's also the bad thing, because if your desire to see the content would have otherwise been such that you would have kept going through like a normal mode raid, like the way we were doing in ICC where, it wasn't easy-fied, that kept a lot of people going, where they wanted to get to that next piece of content. And now if that's your sole and only motivation, if you don't have the additional motivation to become better, to progress through more difficult levels, then really once you go through looking for raid, there's nothing there for you besides just continually going through looking for raid if you want better gear. And I think that's kind of led to this new style of WoW subscriber where they subscribe for patches, they play for 2 or 3 months, and then they unsubscribe. Mm-hmm. And that's why. And, they did it to themselves in that respect. And with no new content for a year, with Blizzard continually saying, we're going to try to get it out faster, 1 year development cycle, we've doubled our employees, more content. Awesome. But now we're having this drought of content will be longer than the ICC Cataclysm gap. Mm-hmm. The beta, it's still pretty early in the beta stages for Draenor. I've watched a lot of streams, a lot of videos, a lot of footage of the beta content for Draenor. And I will say, first off, that the game looks absolutely spectacular. Probably lore-wise, story-wise, the most engaging storyline of any expansion yet. Mm-hmm. And I thought they'd really blew the lid off of that with Pandaria. But with this, they seem to be going even deeper. Pretty much whatever you want, it's there. Awesome. But it's still very early in that beta cycle. And
I've heard they're going to get it out before 2015.
Well, they have to. Otherwise they're just right fucked. Mm-hmm. People will just rage quit at that point. A lot of people. The patience of the player base will only go so far. But at the same time, you're still early in this beta cycle, and we're approaching mid-August. Mm-hmm. And so we're probably looking at a December, I'm saying a November, December release. Mm-hmm. And even then, I hope they make sure that this shit is right. Because I'm starting to get nervous. I'm starting to think, okay, don't release a buggy mess on us, Blizzard. Mm-hmm. Though, they've done it in the past, i.e. patch 3.3, Wrath of the Glitch King.
Or, when Cataclysm launched, the Worgen starting zone was glitchy as hell.
Oh yeah. But, it does happen, but I hope it doesn't happen to the point where it makes it unplayable. Mm-hmm. But so far it seems to be pretty good. It looks, stability-wise. But, we'll see. We'll see where it goes.
Indeed. Indeed. Speaking of gaming, there is another game, different type of game that you and I, this is actually the game that we met. We were both playing it. We met that way.
Right.
Let's talk about, and I've kind of seen it pop up here and there. A lot of people seem to be aware of it. Maybe a few of our listeners are, but I want to talk about nation states.
Indeed.
Nation states is an interesting game because on the surface, if you just look at the game in its raw form, it's actually not much. What you do is you go to the site, You create a nation. Yeah, you name the nation, you pick its government type, you name its capital, pick its flag, and then you answer a quick, basic,
kind of a questionnaire.
Basically just trying to gauge your political leanings so it can give you a base for what your nation's ideology is. And then when you do that, then what it does is each day it gives you a new issue. You're presented with between 2 to 5 options to solve the issue, and then depending on which option you choose, that affects the trajectory of your nation. And then, your economy goes up and down, your nation, the health of your citizenry goes up or down, that sort of thing. And, on its own, in its raw form, it actually gets old very quickly because each day you just sort of log in, you answer your question, and then it takes a day for the results to register.
Right.
But the thing that really makes nation states fun is that the nations are grouped via regions. And you're put into what are called feeder regions. Basically, this massive nations that they just plop you down. But there are regions that are founded by other players, and they try to recruit you. Like if you log on and you create a nation, you will see like 50 telegrams just pop right up. People trying to recruit you to regions. So you and I are founding members of the region Taijutsu.
Yes.
Check us out. But the thing about the thing is that the really good regions will have an active message board, and on a message board you can do you can partake in the political game that is nation states, region against region, or you can engage in national role play within your region, where you sort of role play your nation in conflict with other nations in your region. And depending on how good you are at that, depending on how good other people you play with are at that, depending on what kind of ideas you come up with, you can actually have a lot of fun with this very basic game. The game itself is almost just sort of a launching pad for everything else that comes with it.
Yeah, and let me clarify, by message boards, he doesn't mean, for any people who actually decide to give the game a try, he doesn't mean the little message board in the game itself.
No.
That's a joke.
There is a nation-states message board, but
right, yeah, he means the actual regional forums, which are usually referred to the off-site forums or whatever.
Basically, when you join a region, they will have on the region's page within the game, they will have a link to the message boards, and then you go there, and that's where you do the role playing, more or less.
Right.
And I just wanted, and so yeah, that's actually we met in the regional lexicon, and then myself, you, a couple other people who we knew there formed another region, Taijutsu, and that's the region we've been with since. Yeah,
for 8 years now, 9 years,
give or take. Yeah,
it's been fucking forever. But yeah, so basically, and what we're talking about when we say role play, I think that definition deserves some clarification for those who don't instantly know what we mean. Mm-hmm. We're not talking, D&D type role play. There's no dice rolling or moving of pieces or any of that shit involved. Basically, it's more or less, choosing what kind of nation you want. And then from that point, what kind of leaders you want, what kind of economic system, culture, religion even. A couple players in our region who are gifted with such things have even, created entire new languages that actually work for their countries. Now, Mike and I are nowhere near that level of adept.
No, we're not linguists.
We do like to write some good political stories every now and then, and things like that.
It's basically political fiction almost to an extent. You sort of create these stories. You create Cold Wars, political crises, and then you create these characters. And
endless car rides.
That one car ride that went 9 years. God.
Some say on a clear summer night, you can still see them driving.
Indeed. So, yeah, it's one of those things where it's definitely something that you kind of need to have a passion for. If this doesn't sound like something that you would enjoy doing, that's cool. But if it is something that you think sounds fun, something that you think could be entertaining, definitely give it a shot. I'm gonna shill again. I'm gonna shill our region again. Partly because, why the hell not? We have a podcast, we can do that. But also because your ability to enjoy the game is almost dependent on the region that you're in. If you're in a region that doesn't have a very active offsite forum, then it gets very dull. But if you have a good offsite forum, it can be very interesting and intriguing. So I know in Taija 2 that, we tend to like national role play. We tend to have a healthy sense of what that is, of what it entails.
Right.
And we're always looking for new people to play with. So if you are interested in it and you want some good national role play, come to the Taija 2 forums.
Sorry, go on.
It's really easy. You just create your nation on nation states and then search Taija 2 and the region should pop up. And then just click join Taija 2 in the game. Then you go to the offsite forums and introduce yourself, and we'll walk you through the process.
And even if the role play thing doesn't really sound like something you like, even if you're just looking for a gamer community in general, we do have an active Steam group, or at least a group. Well, we do have a Steam group, an actual one, but the person that made it's never around to invite me when I'm awake. So, but we do have a group of people that do get together on Skype, and we do, play games on Steam together and shit like that. So, I mean, even if you're just looking for a gaming community of a bunch of drunken asshats, we're your guys. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we do a lot of other things besides just role play. You can pretty much find someone that, if you're a politically minded person, be you liberal, conservative, capitalist, socialist, whatever, we've got people right, left, and in between in our region, and somehow we managed to not kill each other. But yeah, so come on down if you want. Give us a check out and stuff.
If anyone is inclined on IRC, Esper, the server is esper.irc.esper.net. Join hashtag Taija2, and we'll be there. That being the IRC channel. Generally, we're a friendly bunch. So yeah, if Nation State sounds like something you want to get involved with, definitely check Taija 2 out. If Taija 2 for some reason isn't for you, at the very least, we've all been around the game long enough that we could probably point you in the direction of a region that you'd probably be a better fit in. If for some reason we're just not your crowd. So yeah, that's Nation States. It's really something. It's definitely something fun. Definitely something that really, at least as far as I'm concerned, it's really entertaining. I've spent a good amount of my free time, at least just sort of kind of thinking like, oh, what am I going to do, in roleplay? What stories do I want to tell? That kind of thing. It's very fun in that regard. It really kind of exercises the creative areas of your brain. And so if you're politically minded and that sounds like something that would interest you, check us out.
Indeed. So, should we do it?
It is time. It is time for the bad movie, A Public Defender.
Dun 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 dun. What?
Highlander.
Let's do the Rocky theme.
Highlander 2. The Quickening.
Indeed.
Now, I believe we need to clarify something right off the bat. Due to how piss-tastic this movie is, there have been numerous cuts and re-edits in an attempt to make it not so bad.
Right. And this will be a defense of the original theatrical version.
The theatrical version that was so bad that these edits were deemed necessary.
Because you know what? I'm not going to go easy mode. No, I could have watched, the Renegade edition or whatever. Nah, bitches. Y'all know me better than that. No half-ass measures here. Original theatrical version up in here.
Indeed. So Highlander 2, The Quickening. I'm going to I'm going to lay out the biggest charge. The biggest charge that this movie is guilty of. Perhaps not guilty quite yet, but the biggest charge that has been leveled against this movie. Complete disregard for the storyline and continuity established in the first one. In the first film. In the film Highlander, it is revealed that there are groups of people on this planet who are, for reasons unknown to them or anyone else, immortal. And the only way to kill an immortal is for another immortal to cut off his head. And then he is bestowed with, like, the strength and the memories of the slain immortal. And that there is a prophecy that there can be only one, that eventually there will only be one immortal left, and he will claim something called the prize. And at the end of Highlander, Connor MacLeod, a native of the Scottish Highlands, the Clan MacLeod, defeats the Kurgan, and becomes, he saves the prize from the forces of evil, and becomes the only immortal left. There can be only one. That's the end of the movie. And so, perhaps, in retrospect, making a sequel was a mistake in the first place, because there's really not a lot of, ways to go on from that point. Maybe it would have been best just to leave it at one. But Highlander 2 starts, and, I guess the big problem, is that the history of the Immortals is completely retconned here, and more or less contradicts and in a lot of people's minds ruins the storyline that the first movie set out. So how do you answer that?
I can see where some would say it contradicts, but at the same time, the original movie never said the original movie was very vague about their origins. I mean, like, even they really didn't seem to know
they didn't.
very much about where they came from. Now,
for clarification's sake, before you go on, I just want to say in Highlander 2, it is revealed that the Immortals are from another planet called Zeist, and that for whatever reason, coming to Earth makes them immortal. And that the Immortals are aliens, and there you go. So, continue.
Okay. So, in that sense, I mean, okay, yeah, they're from another planet, and it's actually not coming to Earth that seems to make them immortal. That was part of their punishment. Mm-hmm. The punishment of MacLeod and Ramirez, Christopher Lambert and Sean Connery, respectively. That's right, Sean motherfucking Connery. They would be made immortal and sent to Earth.
Which, by the way, is bullshit, because of course, Sean Connery and Christopher Lambert, Ramirez and MacLeod, they lead a rebellion on their home planet Zeist against the tyrannical General Katana.
Who is Michael Ironside, who is also synonymous with awesome.
The rebellion is crushed, and so Katana sends them to Earth to be immortal, which kind of seems like a shitty punishment, really, because, okay, we're going to send you to Earth. You will be alive long after I'm dead. That'll teach you, bastard.
Well, the idea is, I mean, basically, you're condemned to be on this planet basically forever. And the whole thing was they were sent there as immortals. There could be only, if they wanted to not be immortal, they basically had to kill one another, or one of them had to kill the other one.
But okay, that brings up another point. In the movie, though, after the failed rebellion, it really only shows the sentence being passed on MacLeod and Ramirez. Yet, in the first movie, we know that there are hundreds, perhaps even thousands of immortals before it eventually gets down to MacLeod. So, are we to believe that the other immortals, besides Ramirez and MacLeod, Were other members of the rebellion that were captured and punished this way? Because they don't really say that. They really only say they're sending McLeod and Ramirez, but we know from the first movie that there were more than just those two.
And in that sense, it doesn't contradict the original movie because it doesn't state that there were or were not others. Now, keep in mind, when it shows Ramirez and McLeod being sent to Earth as their punishment, this was done, of course, in a flashback. Mm-hmm. And, of course, it was done from the memory of McLeod, who had tapped into Ramirez's memories when he died in the first movie, Sean Connery's character, and, became part of those memories. And then the flashback isn't going to show the others being sent because this is part of a memory. So, of course, you're not going to remember other people being sent because you weren't there. What I'm saying is, after Ramirez and McLeod were sent, it's entirely possible this became a routine punishment. It did have the feeling that when they did this, even though it wasn't stated, it did give the feeling to me that it was an unprecedented punishment, perhaps, maybe, but probably not the last. So, 500 years is a long fucking time. Plenty of time for others to meet the same fate and be sent to Earth as their punishment. Now, personally, if I were going to punish someone by sending them to Earth, I would have sent them to Jersey, not Scotland. But that's me, or at least Detroit. But
again, though, we can assume that, yes, but movies they need to show us, I shouldn't have to speculate to this degree. I understand that, yes, we're looking through essentially Ramirez and McLeod's flashbacks, and obviously they're only going to be privy to events they were personally there for. But they should, whether it's a line of exposition, whether it's just something that General Katana says offhandedly, they should at least establish that they've sent others to account for the other immortals. They should have at least done that, and they didn't.
So then why does the first Highlander get a pass for not doing that, and this one doesn't? Because the first Highlander doesn't even take a stab at saying where they came from.
I'll tell you why. It's the same thing of how George Lucas ruined the Force in Star Wars. In the first Star Wars trilogy, the Force isn't really explained in scientific terms. It's just this life energy that binds all living things together. And it has this sort of mystical element to it. And part of mysticism is that part of it is unexplained. It's either no one knows, or by its very nature, it's unexplainable by science. That is part of the fantasy mystical genre. And the first Highlander movie kind of fell into it. There are just these immortals, and not even they know where they come from. And they're all just sort of drawn to fight one another by this unseen force. What is this force? We don't know. It ties in, and the fact that they're using swords, very reminiscent of medieval and fantasy genres. So it's got this really sort of mystical feel to it. It's a throwback in a lot of ways. And then they explain it in Highlander 2 with the alien thing, and it's kind of like introducing metachlorines to explain the Force. You've kind of made it less special, and by explaining it, you've sort of made it worse in a way.
See, here's my thing. Either you're going to explain something or you're going to not. And if it's not right for Highlander 2 to leave things to the viewer's imagination as to, what happened, or even just draw a very logical, no-brain assumption. Okay, well, these other immortals were obviously sent in the same way. This is how they do it. It was put in there to set that precedent. Duh.
Look, it comes down to the same thing that grading a paper does, really, at the end of the day. You can't assume something. You can only grade something based on what the person has actually written, and you can't make assumptions. And it's sort of the same thing here. And it's kind of a fine line when it comes to movies. You don't want to be force-fed things to the point that the movie treats you like an idiot. But at the same time, basic story structure needs to be respected, and basic plot elements need to be fleshed out, especially when you're doing a sequel that has elements of a prequel, which is what this is. It is a sequel, but it definitely has some prequel-esque elements in there, and you really need to be careful about that. You really need to fully take your concept and explain it. Because a lot of people are pissed off that they're aliens in the first place. And so you'd think that if you're going to run with this alien thing, then you better explain it to the best of your abilities so that your audience can at least say, okay, I get it. And they really didn't do that.
Well, okay, here's my thing with it, though. Okay, if you're saying that everything has to be explained out and you shouldn't have to draw anything from conjecture or quote-unquote assume, then you know what? That takes every bit of lore theory crafting ever done in history as being a sign of bad movie making or bad storytelling by the originators. So then let's lump Star Trek, Star Wars, World of Warcraft, anything else in there where anyone has ever drawn conjecture about, let me finish, about lore. Because if that's inherently a sign of bad storytelling, then, everyone's living in a fucking glass house.
The thing is, though, that when it comes to say theory crafting in World of Warcraft, you're conjecturing about the future because World of Warcraft is an ongoing story in a lot of ways. They're always adding the next chapter, the next installment, whatever. You take what you see and you say, oh, well, what's going to be next? Well, I think based on this, and this, and this is going to happen next, and then you discuss that. In Highlander 2, the big failing is that they establish this Zeist connection through a prequel, through a almost prequel-like segment within the sequel, and they don't do a good enough job connecting this new prequel they've established to the already established story that the first movie had told. And it's not. I'm not saying every little thing needs to be explained, but I am saying that basic elements of the story do need to be explained, and that wasn't done.
I disagree because, the basic element, again, we're using the term basic element. Okay, how did these immortals get here? Well, they were sent as a punishment. They have something done to their bodies, which was represented as this flash or whatever of light going through the two characters before they're sent, and then they are sent to Earth. Now, it is consistent with itself in the fact that it does maintain a perspective of the two characters who were involved. It establishes how this is done, why this is done. And that's really, if you're talking about basic plot elements in terms of what you need to know, okay, well, how did the Highlanders get here? Well, how were the Immortals, rather? They were sent here as a punishment. This is evidenced in Highlander 2 when this is done to them. And you don't need someone to actually say the line, and all of the others that were sent, blah, 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 blah. No, that's just needless exposition. It's illustrated perfectly clear. There's actually even really no assumption necessary. That's how they are made. That's how they got here. It states it plain and clear. Well, if you want to extrapolate further, then you're certainly welcome and able to do so. And it leaves that little bit, up to your imagination as to the circumstances and the individual offenses and whatever, the kind of shit that theory crafting or whatever tends to do. But in terms of the movie itself and in terms of what you need to know, it presents it. It's there.
All right. Let me ask you this then. How exactly... is it that McLeod and Ramirez are the leaders of this rebellion on Zeist,
mm-hmm.
and they know each other.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, they're sentenced together.
Mm-hmm.
And then, they're sent to Earth to be immortal. But then we go back to the events of the first film, where we see Connor McLeod growing up as a member of the McLeod clan in medieval Scotland. No memory of his life as the leader of a rebellion on an alien planet. And when Ramirez seeks him out, he doesn't recognize him. Ramirez makes no attempt to remind him of their past on Zeist. And they're acting as if they met for the first time. When clearly Highlander 2 establishes that they knew each other before on an alien planet. And were in fact comrades on this alien planet. So it really... It plays fast and loose with the events of the film that it's trying to connect to, because in the film they meet each other, That's that. They meet each other for the first time. Ramirez has to explain everything about what being an immortal means to McCloud. We see McCloud's backstory established as a member of this clan. Ramirez even gives a little bit of his backstory, in which it's alluded to that Ramirez isn't even his real name, because McCloud in the first movie goes, "Oh, you're Spanish?" And he goes, "No, I'm Egyptian." Obviously assuming that Ramirez has been around a long time, was born in ancient Egypt, and then took on the persona of a Spaniard later on in life. But, here we've got a completely different backstory where these two characters know each other on Zeist. And then they're sent to Earth, but that's that. Like, they're sent to Earth, and then they don't recognize each other. And when they meet, there's no mention of, hey, remember when we were leading that rebellion against that asshole General Katana?
I think the more important question here is, why did they allow Sean Connery to pass off as an Egyptian Spaniard?
Well, he did have a better Scottish accent than Christopher Lambert, actually. That is kind of fun.
Right, and if we're talking about failings, I mean, Christopher Lambert, L2 Scottish, please.
But my point stands, though, that it doesn't really make sense. Like, nothing, like, the prequel elements that they establish in the sequel don't lend themselves to the story that they're actually trying to be connected to.
Of course it doesn't make sense. I mean, if you're Hitler, now, my whole thing on that is it's pretty much established the way, okay, in the sense that it's presented in the second movie, the way the memory comes to Lambert's character, it is presented as a kind of a revelation. And I will say that revelation does seem to be a bit out of the blue. When I was watching it, I simply just kind of figured, okay, well, this is, since it was Ramirez's voice stating the memory, this was, one of Ramirez's memories or something along those lines. It's been established that the quickening itself causes kind of like this merger of consciousness, kind of a greater than the sum of the parts kind of a thing, when it occurs. And I just honestly just dismissed it as part of that. And maybe this is me extrapolating a bit much, but when I watch it, I almost kind of, took from it like almost as kind of a metaphor, a religious metaphor of a separation from like God and the spirit kind of a thing, where, you're sent to Earth, you don't know anything, that kind of thing.
But again, this comes back to basic storytelling. And if we see in the first movie that Connor McCloud has gone his entire life, at least on Earth, as a member of the McCloud clan, and Ramirez has apparently lived this whole life as an Egyptian who moved to Spain, with no memories from either of them of their time on Zeist, then you got to establish that. You got to say it wouldn't have been that hard in the trial scene where they're sentenced to Earth to say, and you'll have no memory of your life on Zeist. That's all that would have, you just had to put that in, and it would have been, okay, fine, it makes sense. But they didn't, and so you've got this situation where two brothers in arms are sentenced to Earth, and then you follow the chronology of events, and then when they meet up on Earth, they don't recognize each other. And it's like, no, you gotta put something in there, man. You've gotta have a line of dialogue that clearly establishes the situation that these characters are going into.
Well, here's my thing. Honestly, is there a point to that? Yeah, there is a point to that. It didn't present, to me personally, it didn't present any barriers, though, to me enjoying the movie. I was able to, and maybe I'm more creative, or maybe I like having that bit of extrapolation necessary. Maybe I like to think on my own about, okay, well, maybe this happened this way, or such and such. Maybe, to me, that's kind of back to what you were saying about how it was almost better that they left the origins of the Immortals unexplained. To me, it kind of made it better in that sense, because that made you kind of think about, okay, well, how and why could this have happened? And to me, it made it more interesting, not less. I found that bit of a depth there that you could add yourself to make it more interesting and enjoyable is an experience kind of in its own right. It didn't really hamper my enjoyment of the movie. I'll be honest. When I watched the movie again, I've seen it a couple times over the years. And never really thought too much of it. It was always just kind of a thing. Even when I watched it the first time, I was never like overtly offended, even after having seen the first one. Mm-hmm. I still like the first one better. Don't get me wrong. I do. I just don't think that Highlander 2 is the steaming abomination of cinematic abortion that everyone seems to think it is. Because whenever I watch it, I always have a good time. And and I can't even say that it's so bad it's good, because I actually like the story that they present. I actually find it to be enjoyable. Does it have its moments of over-the-top, ham-fisted acting? Oh, definitely. And I love it because you have Sean Connery, who clearly is writing the book that Harrison Ford would later take from in Ender's Game, because Sean Connery is just not giving fucks. You have Michael Ironside, who is just giving this, my God, brilliant performance, kind of Joker-esque in a way to me, in the way that he acts. He doesn't really care. He just wants to see the fucking world burn, basically. And then Dr. fucking Cox being pretty much Dr. fucking Cox if he were a bit more of an asshole and running a major corporation.
I've never taken umbrage with the acting in the film.
Well, the thing is, okay, you have to take that into account, though, because it goes a long way towards whether or not a movie is going to be good or bad.
I was just saying I've never had a problem with the acting, but
does the story take a departure from the kind of the tone set in the original? Absolutely, it does. I'd be stupid to not admit that. Does it kind of leave a lot of things unanswered? Yeah, it does. Does that hurt the movie? Not to me. But simply because it gives you that room of mental thought and creativity to just kind of say, okay, it lets you think for yourself and just kind of present things to yourself how you think it should go. Now, if you're one of these people who's just going to sit there and take only what the movie gives you and judge it based on that, then for one thing, you're kind of narrow-minded. And another thing, then, by that same right, almost every movie would be an abject failure if it didn't explain every last goddamn thing that happened. And I know you're not saying the movie's a failure because it didn't go into minutia. I know you're saying that basic points were left not explained. I get that. To me, enough of the basics were explained for me to not mind what the movie did terribly. I mean, okay, maybe this is being taken into the context of the movies that even came after Highlander 2, but when I think the Highlander movies, or even the series, I never even liked the series, I don't sit down, oh, this is going to be a great cinematic experience. The first one was great. The second one was good. The series was meh. I don't remember much about the third, and the ones after that were just bleh.
Well, there was the third, which was basically they redid the first one, and then they had the one where Endgame, where they tied the series into the movies, where they had Duncan MacLeod from the show meet up with Connor MacLeod. That's why I never liked the show.
Because Connor MacLeod or GTFO.
And then the Source was the last one, which was just Duncan MacLeod. But I'll get back to the franchise after Highlander 2 in a second. But, this kind of goes back to my whole, none of this ice crap makes sense. Because, okay, let's take a look. One, we know, or at least it's strongly alluded to in the first film that Ramirez is not his real name. But here it is presented as his real name. But that's besides the point. Fact is, we've got two people on an alien world with no connection to Earth culture called Ramirez and McLeod. You've essentially got a Spanish and a Scottish alien. Got aliens with Spanish and Scottish names being tried by an alien general who is named after a Japanese sword.
Which is really fucking badass if you ask me.
How does this work? How does anyone know what a katana even is on Zeist?
Who says they have to know?
The guy's named Katana!
And? I mean, maybe to them it means something. I'm okay. Okay. If you flip someone off in Japan, they think you're doing sign language for mountains. The same thing doesn't necessarily have a universal definition across even languages and cultures on our planet, much less aliens. I mean, for all we know, fucking Ramirez in their language means cow poop. I mean, we don't fucking know.
When Ramirez and McLeod. Okay, so there's that whole name thing. How about this fact that okay, in the first movie they don't fight on holy ground, right? That's the one rule that immortals have, is that they don't fight on holy ground.
Right.
And in this movie they maintain that. The katana even makes a point of saying no fighting on holy ground.
Right.
They're aliens. What the fuck do they give? What craps do they give about Earth religions? They probably have their own beliefs that don't involve, Roman Catholicism.
Well, I mean, at that point, I mean, you're going to have to extrapolate about their entire religion and all this other shit.
Yeah, but I don't have to extrapolate. I mean, I don't even have to really extrapolate. All I need to know is that all of the holy ground scenes that they show in the first two movies, it's always at a church, probably a Roman Catholic church given the scenery. And, they just say holy ground, so maybe this applies to all holy ground of all religions on earth, but I'm just going off what we see. They're always at a Catholic church or a cathedral, no fighting on holy ground. That kind of works in the first movie when you really don't know the origin of the immortals. But, if they come from an alien culture, I don't even have to really extrapolate about the native religion of Zeist. All I need to know is, all I need is to take that small leap and assume that Roman Catholicism is not a big part of Zeistian religious culture.
Well, no, but I mean, I'm just saying, what if their religion is that they respect all religions? I mean, or what if their religion, okay, in the case of Highlander II, I mean, it was obviously a burial site. Maybe it doesn't take a genius to realize that a burial site may be holy. Mm-hmm. Or recognize, the overall architecture of if you went to an alien planet and you see this, fairly large and grandiose, building, you walk inside and it's very serene and peaceful, and you see these weird images along the wall. I mean, there's certain inherent cues there that can kind of tell you that I think would almost be universal, that this is a place of spiritual significance of some kind or another.
No,
and they also obviously had knowledge of Earth, because otherwise in the flashback they would have said, we're sending you to Earth. So they obviously know about Earth. They obviously know something about Earth.
I'm not debating that they would be able to recognize holy ground on Earth. What I'm saying is, why should they give a crap about Earth spirituality if, holy ground to them should be Zeistian holy ground? I mean, what do they care about a Catholic church? I mean, they're probably not Catholic, so, why do they care about it? I guess you could make the argument that, in their religion, all holy ground of all beliefs is to be respected.
I mean, I'm sorry, I don't need a copy of the Zeist religious rule book to enjoy the movie.
I'm just saying.
I never even thought about it. I never even cared.
I'm just saying.
There was no reason given for me to care.
If you're going to do what I'm saying, and this kind of applies to all the points I'm making here, is that if you're going to watch Highlander, the first movie, and say, I want to make a sequel where we establish they're actually aliens, then, that might seem batshit insane, and maybe it is, but if you're going to do it, at least do it right and take the time to do it in a way that when you watch it, you say, well, at least it's internally consistent. And that's really my closing argument here, is that they got creative, and kudos to them, because, again, I think that the way the first Highlander movie ends, it ends in a way that you could really say no sequels are even needed or possible. So they got creative in a way to justify a sequel, but in order to be a successful movie, in order to be a successful story, they needed to do a lot to tie their new idea in with the ideas of the previous movie, and they simply failed in too many regards. And finally, on top of all of that, the biggest piece of evidence against this movie is that everything else from the Highlander franchise since this has gone out of their way to ignore it. Zeist is never brought up again. The fact that they're aliens is never touched upon after this movie, and and almost every edit, every fan edit, every, cut of this movie since the theatrical release has gone out of their way to remove references to Zeist and the alien nature of the Immortals. The own franchise has disowned the premise of this movie entirely.
Hell, well, I mean, they obviously went back to it and said, well, this is no longer the direction that we wish to go. And they retconned their retcon. I mean, those things do happen. It's not unheard of. Nowadays it's not unheard of at all. So, I mean, and Highlander 3, as you said, was essentially a reboot. Again, not something that's uncommon these days. So, I don't really think anything about it. Here's the short and the skinny of it for me. I do get where people could have problems with this movie. I get it. I'm not stupid. I fully get it. But what I'm saying is that, to me, I always approach these movies as basically who I am. I'm someone who doesn't necessarily, I'm not a movie critic. I'm not anything of the sort. I'm not even really that analytical about most things. I tend to be very creative, and I tend to approach things from that standpoint. And when I look at something like this, I tend to think, or when I look at any sci-fi movie or anything like that, I tend to look at it as, if you're going into a sci-fi fantasy movie, there's going to be things that aren't quite explained. And now I understand that you're saying that this is way more than that allowance should account for. I get that. You don't, I understand. To me though, this movie had enough going for it that I was able to either ignore the flaws and not really feel like I'd missed out on anything, or just kind of like, okay, well, whatever, that's a thing. And that for me was just kind of the overall atmosphere of the movie, where they had this kind of a noir feel to it, this 1940s, though it was the future kind of thing, which was kind of enjoyable in its own right for a few reasons. But just the overall feeling and the atmosphere and the performances in the movie were just awesome. I mean, you've got Christopher Lambert, Sean Connery, Dr. Cox, I forget his fucking name.
John McGinty?
John McGinty, yeah, John McGinty. And Michael Ironside. My God, and every one of them does their own thing perfectly. It's like every one of them brings to the table exactly what you would expect from each one of them in their respective characters. And I was having, a good time just kind of seeing that unfold and those interactions, especially between Dr. Cox and General Katana. That's
another thing that bugs
hilarious.
me. General Katana keeps making references to Earth culture. Like, he keeps saying, like, not in Kansas anymore, or you don't, scrub your top draft pick. How the fuck does he know what a sports draft or Wizard of Oz, or what the Wizard of Oz is?
Well, again, they obviously know what the fuck Earth is. I mean...
Yeah, in like a broad, like, I imagine like they know what Earth is, but like, I have a hard time believing that this alien dictator is like, oh yeah, I regularly pay attention to like the sports drafts of Earth sports leagues.
Hey, it's well established that Katana is fucking insane. He could be like a huge Rams fan or something. I mean, the man's crazy. he is off the fucking rocker. He's gone, man, gone. So I didn't really have an issue with that. And again, the movies where this happens are just almost numerous. I mean, even Star Trek, within that universe, it's understood where an alien would know about Earth and such. But I mean, if you look kind of in the same idea, the same vein as what you're talking about, what they do with aliens, most aliens are just humans with some kind of fucking nose hump or some shit. And you could
they didn't even give them nose humps here. The Zeistians look just like humans.
Right. And I mean, a lot of other movies have done the same thing. And, you know, even Star Trek has had a few races that look I'm sure they have had a few races that look just like humans.
There was that whole race there was the gangster planet in the original series where they didn't even give them prosthetics. It was just a bunch of people dressed up like gangsters. That was the alien planet.
You're going to give us a self-destruct code, see? We're gonna, I don't know. That's into my things. But my whole thing is, to me, this movie, it's fun. It's an enjoyable piece of science fiction. Is it crazy? Yes. Is it baffling at times? Yeah, it can be. But if you just sit down and just fucking watch it and don't get too high on the smell of your own fucking farts and don't get all fucking geek self-righteous on it, it's pretty damn good, really. I mean, if you just take it for what it gives you, you can watch it, you can have a few good laughs, see some fairly decent fight scenes. Well, the one between McCloud and Katana was really good, and the one between Connery and McCloud was good. Now the fuckers, the crazy fuckers with the porcupine heads, now they suck. They were annoying. And those fight scenes.
Yeah. Katana's got like a whole army at his disposal, but he only uses like 2 useless, annoying henchmen.
I don't know. Ask him. Like he said, good help is hard to find. You know, even he said that. So maybe that's what he's got. You know, I mean, for fuck's sake, Earth is obviously a better planet than Zeist.
Well, still, he's the dictator. He is the tyrannical dictator of a whole planet. Surely he's got more than these 2 yahoos at his beck and call.
He was obviously unaware of the situation. Like when he's fighting McCloud the first time, and he's all like, "I would never let you come back to Zeist." And McCloud's like, "Nigga, please. I had a home here. I wasn't going back to that fucking desert shithole. What are you talking about?" Dude, I was chilling until you showed up.
Yo, I know.
I was about to die. I had Depends in my closet until you showed up.
Yeah, that was another thing that doesn't make any sense in this movie. Like, Katana, as far as Katana's concerned, he's won. He crushes Ramirez and McCloud's rebellion and
he
vanishes.
Doesn't know. He doesn't know. For all he's thinking that he evidently, I'm gathering, got word that McCloud had quote-unquote won the quote-unquote prize and was like, oh shit, he's going to be coming for me, going to nip this shit in the bud, and he sends, you know, the Olsen twins there after him. So he obviously thought McCloud was going to had not gone native and was going to be coming back to, you know, kill him, depose him, whatever. And that's what, you know, he was obviously, I mean, it pretty much fairly directly states that was the premise that he was operating under until McCloud's like, what? No, dude, I had a pension and everything, man. I'm good.
Yeah, it just seems really stupid that he kind of screws himself over.
Katana is fucking batshit insane.
All Katana had to do was wait like a month. And McCloud probably would have drank himself into a grave. McCloud was like, he was old and ready to die. He has to make a month, half a year tops. And Katana's gonna, and McCloud dies, and then, no one's left to challenge his rule on Zeist. He wins. All he had to do was sit on his ass for 6 months, and this problem would have solved itself. But instead, he kind of sends his idiot people there, and fucks McCloud, and, you know, gets in McCloud's way, and now suddenly McCloud kills him, and now he's lost everything. It just really counterproductive. Like, he kind of just fucked himself over The villain's arch enemy isn't the hero; it's his own stupidity.
So you're saying Highlander 2 is an effective cautionary moral tale about the hazards of arrogance?
If that's how you want to take it, sure.
I'm going to quote you on that, and that's going to be on a DVD release. You heard it here, ladies and gentlemen. He also earlier gave the word kudos in reference to Highlander 2.
I did not.
You did too. You said, I give it kudos for being creative.
Oh, okay.
That's also directly quotable and going on the box.
I gave it kudos for being creative. But the step after being creative is being creative in the right way, and it didn't do that.
Yes, it did.
No, it didn't.
Yes, it did. Okay, again, and I've said this before with a lot of these other movies because and it's not me trying to reuse the same defense over and over again. It's actually a philosophy I have about a movie. Can you sit down with this movie and have a good time? Yes, you can.
I'd argue that if you're a fan of the first movie, that's going to be difficult.
Okay, if you're a fan, okay, I'm a fan of the first movie. I love the first movie. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I'm not – it takes a lot to get me to nerd rage. Mm-hmm. It's happened one or two times on the show, but it's very – and it's never been – like the most recent time being Blizzard making faction capitals on butt-fuck PvP land instead of, in lore-relevant areas. But that's not raging about continuities or anything like that else in the lore or whatever.
Iron Man 3!
And that's
my big nerd rage.
Yeah, and it's become one of mine too, just because it's just what, because it didn't even. And again, Iron Man 3 was one of those movies where the ending of that movie made me not have a good time. Mm-hmm. And my judgment of success about a movie is simply, can I watch it and enjoy myself?
You thought you didn't have a good time. The good people at Silver City Cinema in London, Ontario are lucky I didn't leave that movie yelling, who's responsible this?
Lol. But with Highlander 2, I sat down, had a good time, and actually found myself saying, oh, well, was over quick. So, I enjoyed the movie. I thought it offered a lot. Mostly, I will say that this movie does rely heavily on the performances of the people in it. But that's also a good thing because they obviously gave those people that were in this movie the freedom to kind of do what they wanted with their characters, to be who they wanted to be with them. And the best points of the actors show forth in this movie, much to the movie's betterment. Now, if you'd had other people in this movie with the same plot and all other things being equal, then yeah, it probably would have sucked balls. But it didn't. It got one thing really right, and that was the casting and the direction of those actors. And for me, that made this movie very enjoyable.
Its own franchise disowned it. Case closed. I rest my case.
I would give it probably, realistically, a 7 out of 10.
Well, that's quotable. That's quotable. Jack gives Highlander 2 7 out of 10 stars. Wow. Okay. Well, as is always, it's up to the viewers to decide who won. Did Jack suitably defend Highlander 2 The Quickening, or is it still the steaming shit pile we all truly know it is?
Lies.
But that concludes our 6-month milestone, episode 26. It's been fun. Here's to many more to come. We're not slowing down anytime soon. I'm actually really excited about basically a football show returning because all 3 of our shows will now be out simultaneously for the first time. That's really cool. And so it's time to shill. It's time to be shills. You can catch us on email. Send us an email at basicallygeekshow@gmail.com, on Twitter @ageekshow. Find us on Stitcher, Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube. You can check us out in the lounge section of the sportslogos.net forum. You can catch us in the video discussion forum at tfw2005.com. And, of course, in the Basically a Sports Show thread, on the Taija 2 Nation States forum. That's forum.taija2.org, I believe. So check us out, whatever's easier for you guys. Also on our site, basicallyasportshow.com. This is episode 26 of Basically a Geek Show. For Jack, this is Mike, signing off.
Oh, what? I fell asleep when you were shilling. What?
Night, everybody.
Night.
Please hang up and try again.